Is it Kennedy? It's me, Aaron. 10 years ago, my ex-husband ran off with my son's wife, and since then, he had disappeared without a trace. I didn't even want to remember those who betrayed me and my son, let alone see them again. Yet here I was, receiving a call from my ex-husband after 10 years. And, believe it or not, he had the audacity to demand over the phone, "You're living in your parents' house now, right? I know it's sudden, but could you leave that house?" I was stunned by my ex-husband's request. I couldn't believe that he contacted me after 10 years to ask me to leave my parents' house so he could live there with his affair partner. "Seeing that you're still in your parents' house, you haven't remarried, have you? Just leave then." His mocking tone only fueled my anger, which had reignited for the first time in 10 years. Fortunately, my ex-husband was unaware that my living situation had changed over these 10 years. That's why I could say, "Sorry, but the house is gone." What? A decade later, I made my ex-husband fully aware of this. I resolved to do so. My name is Kennedy Davis. I'm 60 years old and work as a part-time teacher at a private school. Although I've reached retirement age, my salary has decreased, but I continue to work part-time. Perhaps it's because I grew up admiring my parents, who were famous teachers, and the memories of my childhood. I got a divorce from my ex-husband, Aaron, 10 years ago. And now, after such a long time, this incident began with the sudden reappearance of that man I thought I would never see again after our terrible divorce. 21 years ago, I met Aaron during our college years at a part-time job. I was working at a tutoring school as a part-time tutor to support my studies to become a teacher. Aaron joined the tutoring school as a part-time tutor after me. Although he was older, I had been working there longer, and the director appointed me to support Aaron. As I taught him about the job, we grew close, and that's how we started dating. After dating for 3 years while continuing our part-time jobs, we got married upon graduating from college, and later we were blessed with a son, Everett. By that time, I had secured a job as a teacher, so we left the tutoring school, informed them of our marriage, and received a grand celebration. 25 years later, Everett had grown up and was set to marry Haley, whom he met at a design school in New York. As parents, we wholeheartedly celebrated Everett's marriage and hoped he would have a happy and fulfilling family life. Then, out of the blue, Everett contacted me saying he had something to ask and returned home. Since marrying, Everett had been busy with his job as a figure sculptor and hadn't visited home much, so I was excited to see him after such a long time. However, Everett seemed troubled. "Mom, you're married to Dad, right?" "Of course. Why are you asking me that?" After hesitating, Everett looked determined and leaned in. "Actually, I saw Dad walking with Haley in New York." "What?" It turned out that Everett had seen Aaron and Haley walking arm in arm in Tokyo, near the hotel district, last Friday night. Seeing them on his way back from work, Everett found it suspicious and followed them, only to see them enter a hotel. Even hearing something like that, I couldn't believe it. Indeed, I was, of course, aware that Aaron and Haley, despite being in-laws, got along like a real father and daughter. However, it wasn't as if they were close enough to meet privately, just the two of them. Especially not at a hotel. No way. I wish it were just a dream or a mistake too. But this is proof. Saying this, Everett showed me a photo on his phone, clearly showing Aaron and Haley, arm in arm, entering a hotel. And speaking of Friday night, Aaron had come home late. He claimed it was overtime at work, but that was clearly a lie. Thinking back, I realized that in the past few months, there had been an increase in the number of days Aaron returned late. He insisted it was because of coworker gatherings, sudden business trips, or working on holidays, and I initially believed him. But upon further reflection, the sudden increase in business trips, overtime, and holiday work felt odd, as these were rare before. Could all those have been excuses for spending time with Haley? I asked Everett to send me the photo, telling him I'd talk to his dad about it, and send Everett home. When Aaron finally came home late that night, he seemed drinking, smelled of alcohol. Despite the reek of alcohol, I confronted Aaron about it. "Aaron, I heard from Everett today that you met with Haley last Friday. Is that true?" "Huh? Oh, yeah, met her for a bit, and talked, I guess." Aaron's eyes darted away as my question seemed to sober him up. Seeing his reaction, I pressed further. "Everett also mentioned he saw you and Haley entering a hotel together." I said this while showing him the photo Everett had given me. At the sight, Aaron's eyes widened. He choked on his breath, and his gaze flitted around as if looking for an escape. Confirming my suspicions with his reaction, Aaron let out a deep sigh as if giving up. Damn it, I can't believe Everett caught us. I got carried away, I guess. Aaron, you can't be serious. Yay. There's no point in making excuses anymore, so I'll come clean. With a sense of resignation, Aaron confessed everything. He admitted that he had been swayed by Haley's invitation and had started dating her 6 months ago. And now, his feelings were almost entirely with Haley. 6 months ago coincided with the 3rd year of Everett and Haley's marriage. Had Aaron and Haley been in a relationship since then? Faced by my shock, Aaron continued to speak, and finally, he made a cruel confession. That's the situation, so I want to marry Haley. Kennedy, you're out of the picture. I want a divorce. My head went blank with his words, and although I vehemently opposed, Aaron was adamant. I just want a divorce anyway. I can't do this with you anymore. Saying this, Aaron didn't come home the next day. Not only that, but I soon realized that all of Aaron's belongings were gone from our house, and a completed divorce form was left on the table. Later, a heartbroken call from Everett saying Haley left a divorce form and disappeared made it clear there was no turning back. This is how Aaron and Haley eloped and vanished, leaving me in utter disbelief. That was the end of my marriage with Aaron, 10 years ago. After filing for divorce, I sold the house we lived in and moved to a new place near my work. Initially, I was desolate, but as I was swamped with work regardless of my personal struggles, I gradually realized that my emotional wounds had healed. And I believe the fulfillment I found in teaching helped heal my heart. Dedicating myself to this rewarding job, even after retirement, being allowed to stay on as a part-time teacher, and having vibrant days with colleagues and students played a significant role. Engaging deeply in my work as a teacher and my interactions with students reduced the time I spent dwelling on Aaron and Haley. 10 years later, I was living a fulfilling life without looking back on my days with Aaron. Although my income decreased as I became a part-time teacher, staying at the school and being surrounded by students who admired me like a parent was more than enough. Hearing that Everett had managed to overcome the shock of his father and wife's betrayal by immersing himself in work also gave me peace of mind. However, one day, a phone call shattered the peace I had found. Hello, is it Kennedy? It's me, Aaron. What, Karen? Hearing my ex-husband's voice for the first time in 10 years. I thought I would never hear it again, and I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. What do you want after all this time? Surely, you're not calling to reminisce about the old days. I couldn't help but speak cautiously. It wasn't unreasonable. The last time I had spoken to Aaron was 10 years ago, and even then, he was adamant about getting a divorce, no matter how much I tried to reason with him. Recalling that, I tried to maintain my composure and suppress my emotions, but Aaron just said dismissively, "Come on, that's cold. Is that any way to talk to your husband who's calling after 10 years? You're forgetting the ex, you're my ex-husband. I don't think of you as my husband anymore, and I certainly don't want to see you or even hear your voice. Whatever. But to the main point, you're living in your parents' house, right? I know it's sudden, but could you move out? What?" His words, delivered with such an insensitive casualness, made me lose control of my emotions, and I ended up raising my voice again. Perturbed by my confusion and anger, Aaron continued. "Haley's pregnant with our child. But having a kid is more expensive than I thought. We're starting to struggle financially." According to Aaron, he and Haley had married after eloping, and, despite the 30-year age gap, had been living passionately as husband and wife. However, everything changed when Haley became pregnant last year. Both Aaron and Haley had quit their jobs in a hurry before eloping, and neither had work history that would get them hired at any respectable company since. So, they had been living day to day by juggling part-time jobs. With Haley's pregnancy and subsequent inability to work, their financial situation quickly became dire. "I can't handle it anymore, so we thought about asking Everett or going back to your parents' house, but Everett turned us away, and my parents have disowned me. Everyone's so stubborn." As Aaron laughed carelessly on the phone, the faces of his parents and brother, whom I visited for introductions 13 years ago before our marriage, floated into my mind. I remembered his strict-looking father, strong-willed mother, and serious-looking brother. I hadn't been in contact with them since the divorce, but I couldn't imagine them forgiving what Aaron did. That's why you plan to move into my house. Exactly. Seeing as you're still living in our old house, you haven't remarried, have you? A single woman with nothing going for her but her teaching job is less important than a married young woman with her first child. Just move out. His rude dim and ignited a fury in me. Had I idealized the Aaron in my memories too much over these 10 years? I hadn't thought he could be this irresponsible. And then, remembering something important, I said in a low voice, "Unfortunately, my parents' house is gone." What? My father passed away 3 years ago, and my mother last year. The house was too big for me alone, so I decided to sell it. There's no house left for you, Aaron. What? Now it was Aaron's turn to raise his voice. Besides, I have no intention of telling you where I live now, and even if you found out, you're not welcome. So never come. Dead, you say? Then what about the inheritance? Aaron's words, showing concern only for the potential inheritance and not the passing of my parents, made me grimace in anger and disgust. It seemed he had been eyeing not just any money I might have, but also my parents' inheritance all along. But that ship had sailed long ago. All the money from my parents' estate went to me along with the house. My parents said they wouldn't leave a penny to the shameless man who eloped with his son's wife. What? 10 years ago, the day Aaron and I divorced, my parents were furious upon hearing about Aaron and Haley's betrayal from Everett and me. It was understandable. They had treated Aaron kindly like their own son, believing in him, only for him to betray them in the worst way possible by eloping with his son's wife and hurting both his son and wife. The first thing my parents did was to settle their estate and prepare their will. My parents prepared a will ensuring that everything, including our family home, would be inherited by me, in anticipation of the day Aaron and Haley might return. 7 years after that, my father passed away, and my mother followed last year, leaving me to inherit the family home and the estate. Despite the house being too large for me alone, and although I didn't want to part with it because it was filled with memories of my parents, I decided to sell it, respecting my parents' wishes. I hoped it would go to someone more deserving than the likes of Aaron and Haley. Hearing this reality, Aaron exploded over the phone. "Are you kidding me, you? Don't mess with me. There's no way that's allowed. There's nothing about allowed or not allowed. I legally inherited everything following the proper procedures. Aaron and Haley, who did nothing and were off gallivanting elsewhere, have no say in this." Even as I responded, Aaron, perhaps enraged to the point of losing his sense, hurled a torrent of abuse before slamming the phone down. And there I was, staring down at my disconnected phone. To rely on someone after selfishly abandoning them, and then lash out when things don't go their way. To think that the man I had spent years with could be so irresponsible and childish. To my utter disdain, I then received a call from Haley. She blamed me unilaterally for being cold-hearted for not informing her about the passing of my parents. She ranted, but her words didn't affect me. If Haley truly felt shocked about my parents' deaths, she would have expressed a wish to visit their graves. Yet, there was no indication of such sentiments from her end, only a focus on the inheritance. That's why I considered neither her or Aaron worthy of visiting my parents' graves. Thinking so, I hung up on Haley before she could finish her rant. Then, Everett called after that. "Mom, it's me. Did Dad and Haley show up there?" "No. If they did, it was only to fuss over the house and inheritance over the phone, you know." Hearing my response, Everett sighed over the phone. "I see. They came to my place directly before, so I thought maybe they'd try you next." "Everett, are you okay? Did they do anything to you?" "I'm fine, Mom. They just made a scene at our door. When I threatened to call the police, they ran off. But I've got an idea." Everett then shared his plan with me. And hearing it, I decided to cut ties with Aaron and Haley once and for all, for my sake, and to protect the new life my son was building. A few days after implementing that idea, Aaron called again in a panic. "Kennedy, what have you done? Such a rude way to start a conversation. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Right now, they're swarming our apartment. They." According to Aaron, 7 women had descended on the apartment he and Haley were living in. These women were Aaron's mistresses, and shockingly, aside from Haley, he had been involved with 7 other younger women. He didn't only have one mistress, but 8. Haley, unaware she was one of many, was infuriated upon discovering this during the women's uproar, and confronted Aaron. "Never would I have imagined you were involved with 7 other women. I'm impressed. You've done it right. How did you find out about my secret? I have nothing to teach or say to you who left me blinded by another woman 10 years ago." What? Aaron, infuriated, hurled more insults over the phone, but they no longer bothered me. Soon, amidst the chaos, Haley, equally enraged, confronted him, and they began a loud argument, ignoring me completely. This must be what they call a complete mess. So, I left Aaron with these final words, unsure if he was listening or could even hear. "Bye, Aaron. I'll make sure to remember you, so please, never show up in front of me and our son again." With that, I hung up. This commotion caused by Aaron's mistresses was exactly Everett's plan. After Aaron and Haley had shown up at his place, Everett immediately hired a detective agency to investigate them. They discovered Aaron's affairs with not just Haley but 7 other women, and 3 of whom were married. Everett promptly shared this information with me, including Aaron and Haley's current address. Everett and I anonymously informed the affair partners about Aaron and Haley's whereabouts, sending them all at once to confront them. The chaos that ensued at Aaron and Haley's apartment escalated to the point that the police were called. As expected, Aaron's relationship with Haley ended, and he was simultaneously sued for compensation by the husbands of the 3 married women he was involved with, amounting to a 6-figure sum. Aaron lost Haley, his home, and his money, and is now reportedly living as a homeless person in a park, seen by my co-worker participating in a food distribution there. Haley, similarly sued for a 6-figure sum in compensation, had no choice but to cover the costs for loans, which turned out to be from loan sharks. Shortly after taking the loan, she was taken away by some intimidating men in a car, and her whereabouts since then are unknown. A decade after settling the score with Aaron and Haley, I've returned to my peaceful daily life. Though I'm still single, the joyful and vibrant days I spend at school are more than enough for me. I've heard that Everett has met a woman in a similar situation, with 2 children of her own, and they are now in a relationship with marriage in mind. I sincerely hope he finds new happiness and a new life.